Ever wonder what happens when someone knows exactly how a mission will go wrong, but everyone's too proud to listen? 48 hours. That's all Lieutenant Nathan Brennan had before he'd be bleeding out in the arms of the woman he'd dismissed as just logistics. The woman who'd already killed more enemies than he had operations under his belt. Captain Linnea Voss wasn't your typical supply officer, but nobody at Forward Operating Base Condor knew that. At 28, she'd mastered invisibility, standing in briefing rooms like furniture present, but overlooked. Her real scars lived beneath her sleeve, hidden in ink the Army had carefully erased from official records. Nathan Brennan wore his fresh green beret-like armor when Voss quietly observed his mission brief. Reading the tactical map like a language only she understood, he made his first mistake. He assumed her silence meant ignorance. The quiet woman reviewing ammunition loads had operational experience that made his resume look like a child's homework. The compound they were planning to hit screamed ambush to anyone who knew how to read it. Walls positioned for crossfire, sightlines to perfect, entry points funneling attackers into kill zones. Voss had breached a nearly identical compound in Helmand Province years earlier, back when she operated with a unit that changed its name every 18 months to avoid oversight. That operation had gone sideways. Her team leader, Lieutenant Marcus Brooks, had called her concerns professional pessimism right until the secondary explosion turned night into chaos. Voss put 3 insurgents down in under 10 seconds, then dug through rubble with hands that weren't fast enough. Brooks died anyway, bleeding out while she held pressure on an artery severed in 3 places. His last words, "Not your fault," made it worse somehow. The Army offered her a choice after that: continue with the shadowy unit, or transition out with a sanitized record and conventional commission. She chose to leave, not from fear, but from a realization that scared her more than any enemy. She was exceptional at taking lives, and that excellence had started to feel normal. So here she was at FOB Condor, watching another confident officer ignore patterns she could see in her sleep. Brennan made sure everyone knew the logistics captain was risk-averse, someone who'd probably never left the wire. The psychology was transparent. He felt small around her calm competence, and men like Brennan handled that by making others smaller. The breaking point came during tactical rehearsal. Voss mentioned their primary breach point created a fatal funnel with no covered exit. Brennan stopped the exercise. Maybe the logistics officer took a wrong turn on the way to the supply tent. The assembled soldiers went quiet. Voss's voice stayed level. "I'm here to ensure you come back alive, Lieutenant. But when your team is pinned in that breach point with nowhere to fall back, you're going to remember this conversation." Brennan's face cycled through anger and humiliation. "You know what your problem is, Captain. You think reading reports makes you a warfighter? Some of us have actually been downrange." Something flickered in Voss's eyes. Something ancient and dangerous. Then it vanished. "You're right, Lieutenant. Best of luck on your mission." Staff Sergeant Kyle Morrison had been watching. 34, with enough deployments to recognize when something didn't add up. He started asking quiet questions. Voss's service record showed Ranger qualification, but had gaps in the timeline. Assignments with dates that didn't quite line up. Just enough to make him wonder what the Army was hiding. By mission brief, battle lines were drawn. Voss kept her head down and waited. She knew in 72 hours, everything would change. The intelligence was compromised. The compound was a kill zone for overconfident operators who thought they knew better. At 0200, Voss sat alone, unable to sleep. Brooks's photograph stared back at her. Both of them younger, stupidly believing competence could protect you. For 6 months after he died, she couldn't hold a coffee cup without tremors. Eventually, the shaking stopped, replaced by hollow steadiness that felt less like healing, more like amputation. She pulled up the mission imagery. The compound sat in a shallow valley. 3 buildings in a U. Intelligence called it lightly guarded. Minimal defense. But the shadows told a different story. Disturbed earth near walls. Sightlines to clean. Roof positions perfect for final defense. In 14 hours, Brennan would walk his team into a trap. She could force the issue. Make calls to people who'd confirm her concerns. But years operating in shadows had taught her that sometimes the only way to save people was to let them see the danger themselves. At 1800 hours, Voss found Lieutenant Colonel Harland. "Sir, I need to discuss tonight's mission. The compound profile doesn't match the threat assessment. I've reviewed the intelligence. It's solid. Sir, I've seen compounds like this before. This reads like a prepared position designed to look soft until someone commits. Where did you see compounds like this? Captain, when you were a logistics officer. Voss hesitated. Before I was logistics, I did different work. The kind that's redacted in my service record, sir. Harlan leaned back, attention sharpening. Even if you're right, we're 6 hours from launch. I can't scrub a mission based on a hunch. Then let me go as an observer. If I'm wrong, I'll stay quiet. If I'm right, I might help. Fine. You observe. But this is Lieutenant Brennan's mission. Claire Christosa, at 2145. Voss climbed into the lead vehicle wearing full kit. Brennan looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Captain's come in as an observer. She stays out of the way. They rolled out into Afghan night. The infiltration was textbook lights off. Night vision. Moving through shadows, they were a good. Spacing, correct. Discipline, excellent. But they moved with confidence that expected the plan to work, and that worried her. The compound appeared ahead, dark against darker mountains. Too quiet. Brennan signaled assault forward. 8 men would breach, whilst Morrison's foreman team held perimeter. Voss stayed with Morrison, scanning compound walls. The charge detonated. The assault team flowed through. For 10 seconds, nothing. Then the compound erupted. Muzzle flashes from prepared roof positions. Heavy machine gun fire from the adjacent building. Brennan's team was caught in the fatal funnel, silhouetted against breach light, taking fire from 3 directions. Contact front. Contact. Right. We're pinned. Taking casualties. Morrison directed suppressive fire, but the insurgents had planned well. The assault team was trapped. Voss didn't hesitate. She'd seen this before. She moved left, fast and low, using the compound wall for cover, working toward the western building where machine gun fire originated. Captain, what are you doing? Morrison called. She was already gone. The western building had a ground floor window left open. She approached from the blind side, heard voices shouting, Pashto, 2 men, maybe 3. Voss pulled a flashbang, counted 3, pitched it through. The explosion was deafening. She was through before the echo faded. Rifle up, moving like she'd never stopped. 2 insurgents inside, both stunned. She put controlled pairs into each. Sent a mass. Professional. No wasted movement. The machine gun fell silent. She cleared the room, moved to stairs. The roof shooter heard her coming, tried to swing his rifle around, but he was operating in darkness, and Voss had done this when darkness was an advantage. 1 shot. He dropped. Western building secure. Roof position neutralized. Advise Brennan, clear egress route to my position. Radio silence for a shocked second. Then Morrison, Brennan, you heard her. Move west. The assault team extracted under covering fire, dragging 2 wounded. Voss held position, rifle tracking each window with mechanical precision. When they were clear, she slid back into formation. Brennan stared at her, expression between shock and fury. The firefight lasted 5 more minutes before remaining insurgents fled. 2 wounded, neither life. 3 enemy killed. The ride back was silent. Voss sat in back, not looking at anyone. Her hands were steady, but inside she felt the old weight settling back. She'd been so close to leaving this behind. The after-action review began at Harlan paced, expression thunderous. Silence. Sir, the mission profile matched a tactical pattern I've encountered before. Your previous training. Harlan picked up a folder, dropped it on the table. That before 2022, there's a Chief Warrant Officer, Voss, who served with the Strategic Reconnaissance Element. 13 confirmed Hivalia target eliminations over 4 deployments. Temperature dropped. Brennan looked up sharply, face going pale. They told me she disrupted the Helmand IED network, that she holds decorations I don't have clearance to know about, that after a mission went bad, she requested transition to conventional forces. He turned to Voss. So I'm asking directly, Captain, who are you really? Voss was quiet. I'm exactly who I said I am, sir. A logistics officer. Everything before that is classified. But you knew last night's mission was compromised. Yes, sir. Harlan turned to Brennan. Lieutenant, you made assumptions without wondering why a Ranger-qualified officer was working logistics. You dismissed her concerns. Last night, your arrogance nearly got your team killed. Crushing silence. Sir, Voss said quietly. Lieutenant Brennan's approach was sound, based on the intelligence. The fault was in the intelligence, not his planning. Don't defend him, Captain. With respect, sir. That's exactly why I was there. Voss looked at Brennan. Lieutenant Brennan is a good officer. He's young and still learning that experience comes in different forms. Last night was a hard lesson, but he and his team are alive to learn from it. Morrison spoke up. Sir, Captain Voss's actions were specifically calculated to minimize risk. She identified the primary threat, neutralized it, enabled extraction. That's not luck, that's experience. Harlan nodded slowly. From now on, every mission goes through her for operational review. If she says there's a problem, we delay. He turned to Brennan. You're on administrative duties pending review. ULL participate in planning, but whoa. Unlead missions until I'm confident you've learn to check your ego. Brennan's face showed the impact. Yes, sir. In the hallway, Brennan stopped. Captain, I owe you an apology. Several. I was wrong about you, and I put my team at risk because of it. Voss studied him. You made assumptions based on incomplete information, Lieutenant. That's correctable. The question is whether you learn. I will. If you're willing, I'd appreciate the chance to learn from someone with your experience. Voss stood alone after they left, feeling the weight. She'd tried so hard to leave this behind, but the universe kept putting her in positions where the only way to save lives was to become that person again. She touched her wrist, feeling the raven tattoo beneath fabric. 13 talons. The count hadn't grown. She'd saved lives instead of taking them this time. Maybe that was the point. 6 weeks later, Task Force Iron ran its most successful operation. Brennan led the mission after working directly with Voss on intelligence analysis. The change was visible. He asked questions instead of asserting conclusions. He listened. Most importantly, he'd learned to recognize when confidence outpaced competence. The deployment ended with Task Force Iron having one of the best records in theater. 0 killed in action, minimal wounded, successful missions, without catastrophic failures. Back in her quarters, Voss pulled out Brooks's photograph one last time. She'd carried him so long, the weight of his death pressing on every decision. But somewhere during this deployment, the weight had shifted. Still, there would always be there, but now, it felt less like burden, more like responsibility. She'd saved Brennan's life, helped him become someone who might save others. That felt like service Brooks would understand. The raven tattoo caught light as she folded the photograph. 13 talons, 13 promises kept. She'd added other sins not kills, but lives saved. Officers mentored, mistakes prevented. Maybe the skills from that classified unit, precision, patience, understanding of violence, weren't just for killing. Maybe they were for saving people from mistakes that got good soldiers killed for bad reasons. Wherever she ended up, she'd do what she'd always done. For Brennan. Others guarded from shadows. She'd learned which one she was and made her peace with it. The raven watchful and patient, keeping vigil over those who needed protecting, even if they never knew she was there.